In this video, we are going to be checking out how to solve percent problems that basically ask us to find the whole. But we're going to do that with equations. Well, the reason why I like using equations in general over using proportions is we don't really need to identify what the part and the whole are. And if you're looking at this video saying, what's the part and what's the whole that this guy's talking about? Watch some of the previous videos that I talk about with solving these problems, but with proportions. Okay, so to use an equation, we literally do a direct translation of what is written here. We have 62 is 37% of what number? So 62 is always means equivalent to, equals to, 37%. Now in an equation, I write that as either a fraction or as a decimal. I think decimals are easy to use because a percentage, remember 37% is really 37 out of 100, 37 100ths, or 0.37. So 62 is 37%, or 0.37 of. Of means multiplication. So 37% of some number. So we'll call that x. And that's it. You've got 62 is 37% of some number. That's all there is to it. So now what we need to do is solve out that equation. As I suggested in an earlier video with proportions, I'm going to suggest the same thing with equations. Practice the translations first. Practice just getting to this step and then solve out those equations. So do 5 to 10 of these problems and stop at this step, then go back and solve them all out. You'll get much better at this much quicker because you're focusing on one component of what you're doing mathematically. All right, to solve this out, I divide both sides by 0.37 because I'm undoing multiplication. It's a basic equation at that point. 62 divided by 0.37 is a 167.6, and that's rounded to the nearest tenth. That's it. That's your answer. Awesome stuff. Legitimate answer, 37% of something is 62, which means we could do one thing. We could plug this back in and do 0.37 times this and see if we get 62 out, or just kind of reason it mentally and say 62 is roughly 60, is roughly 33%, so it's roughly a third of some number. So if we're a third of something, if I triple 60, I get 180. That gives me a decent approximation of what my answer should be. And we're in that ballpark, so it's a legitimate answer. All right, let's translate this one into an equation. So we've got 89 is. I stop there and I translate it. So 89 is, so that's equals 125%. That's 125 out of 100, or 1.25 of what number? Well, I don't know. Of something. So times x. And again, here we've got a direct translation. All we got to do now is solve it. So to undo 1.25 times x, I divide both sides by 1.25, undoing both the division of, undoing 1.25 times x with division of 1.25, and of course doing the same thing to both sides of the equation. So you get 89 divided by 1.25. I did the calculations out before. They're right down here off screen. It's 71.2. So we have 71.2 is equal to x, which also makes sense as an answer. If you're taking 125% of something, we're going to end up with a bigger number at the end of the day because you're taking all 100% of something and adding on an additional 25%, which will get you 89, which means we started with a smaller number to begin with. Personally, I prefer solving with equations. A lot of teachers will teach you both ways. Some teachers prefer proportions. I'm a big fan of equations. I think they're a bit quicker with the translation, a little quicker to solve. You would need a calculator to do out the division, of course, as well as with the proportions too, depending on how nasty the numbers are.